Eco Ambassadors. Great, perfect. Okay, so here's a reminder about the office hours session tomorrow at 9 a.m. I think a few of you submitted in your questions. Thank you so much. We probably won't be able to get to every question in detail, but we'll make sure to answer the majority of the general questions and such. Let me just pull up the chat so that I can put this link in here in case there's any last minute questions or thoughts that you might have that you want to discuss tomorrow. We'll send the Zoom link at the end of the day today. So we have a few goals for today. We're going to learn a few basic GIS analysis tools and techniques. And as I'm going through the lecture and the demos, I'd like everyone to sort of think about their final projects and how they want to incorporate the things that they learned today in their projects. Because at the end of the session today, if we have time, which hopefully we do, you'll have time to discuss your projects and sort of talk about how you want to incorporate the things that you've been learning this summer in them. So we'll go through some statistics that you can do with GIS. So as all of you know by now, vector data has a data table attached to it that's called the attribute table. And it sort of works similar to like an Excel sheet or a CSV, where you can do a bunch of different statistics and analytical calculations and things like that. So these are a few of the statistics that I'm sure everyone is familiar with, but I wanted to show some examples of how you can use them. So for the sum, for example, if you want to just see an area and look at the sum of the microplastics that have been collected there, you can do that with some some general statistics on your data set. You can also look at the average of the data points within your data set. So one thing that I've seen some students and researchers do is they'll take sort of the average number of a certain species and a location in one season, and then they'll do that same calculation, but in a different season. And then you can see sort of how different species have migrated over time. So that might be an interesting use case for some people if you're working with any animals or species in your projects. And there's the min and the max and standard deviation, which I think have similar use cases. So if you want to just like see the range of values in your location, so if you want to see like this specific beach ranges from 0 microplastics in this area and a lot of microplastics in another area, you can sort of like look through your data set and see what's going on there. And you can also just see how spread out the values in your data are as well. So I'm going to go through an example of this first. I'll log into ArcGIS. One thing that I'll note is with all of these analyses that I'll be showing you today, you'll be needing credits in your account. So I'll talk a little bit about credits, but everyone right now has 10 credits in their account, but we'll be increasing that to 100 per account, just so that you have a little bit more room to do some analysis. But again, I'll go through that a little bit as I go through this. So here is my web map on the microplastics. I think the first thing that you should do when you have your data set all figured out is to filter it out to your specific location. I don't think that there will be enough credits for everyone to do big global analyses. And so I would really encourage everyone to find a specific location, a specific country or a city, and do a project about that. So the first thing that you can do to make sure that you're not doing an analysis on your whole location is to filter out the data set itself. So here, the polygons in this whole map represent the coastal and marine protected areas throughout the world. It's taking a bit to load just because it's a big data set. So I'm just going to zoom into this one location. And I want to just count the number of microplastics that have been collected in this protected area. So what I'll do is I'll click on my polygon. And then you can see this is all the information for this specific protected area. And then I'll just make sure that I know how to identify it. So I just copied the name of it here. What you can also do is look at the table. So I clicked on table here. And then it says one record, one selected. And you can see all the information in that polygon that you selected. So I'm gonna use this ID number that's associated with this polygon so that I can filter this analysis. So I just copied the ID number, and then on the right here, there's this tool called filter. So if you expand and collapse, again, you can see all of the different tools that you can look at. So I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to add a new filter. And then it says show features where, and then the condition is that column name is this number. And then now you can see that all of the other ones are a little bit grayed out. When I hit save, you'll see that the only record that's here now is this polygon area. So if you go into the analysis button here, you can see all of the different tools that you can use for your projects. I'm just going to go through a few of them that I think that might be helpful. And for statistics, what you'll do is do a summarize data tool. So all of these tools have different categories, and you can look through all of them and sort of decide which one might be best for your project. So what I'll do is I will do aggregate points. So I know that there are microplastics within this area, and I just want to do a summary of those microplastics in that specific area. So I'll go to aggregate points. The features to aggregate or summarize are the microplastics points. So my input point layer is the microplastics. The area type, you can do a few different options. So here I already have a polygon set up, but if you don't have a polygon area, you can sort of sketch out your own input feature. So my area type is a polygon area. Again, you can either use a layer that's already in your map. So I would click layer and then select the layer, or there's this button on the right that says draw input features. So you can sort of sketch out your own area. For example, like this. So that might be helpful for some people if you don't have a specific area, but you know which ones you want to calculate. But then I will be using this polygon layer. So you can see count of features is 1 because I filtered it out just for that one polygon that I want to summarize. And then in the statistics, you can sort of decide what statistics you want. So I'm going to do measurement. And then you can select what statistic you want. I'm just going to do the sum for now. And I'm going to group it by unit. So for every single unit that's in this data set, it will provide a different sum. And I'm going to do that because I know that not all the measurements taken are the same. And then it'll ask you for an output name. Some microplastics. And then what this does is it creates a new layer that has all of the results. So a very, very important button that you should click before you run any analysis is this estimate credits button. So as I mentioned, everyone will get 100 credits. This analysis will use up 15. So I know that I have 85 credits remaining after I run this analysis. It is helpful if you have multiple group members. So if you do sort of make a mistake and you run out of credits, you can sort of just use your group members' credits. But I would just encourage everyone, regardless of if you're working in a group or not, to just take note of the amount of credits that you're using in your analysis. So I'm going to hit run. And then that's gonna run. As your analysis goes, you can view the status of it by clicking the view status button, and you can see that the tool is running. I already did this yesterday, so while it runs, I'll just add that one. So here is the result of the analysis. If you go into show table, you can see all of the statistics that you calculated. So what this does is it will incorporate both the original data table and the statistics. So as you can see, this polygon still retains all of the ID information, the name, all of that information. And if I scroll all the way to the right, the sum of my measurements are in a new column, and it is 0.371. What's also nice is that it'll give you a count of all the points that were included in the analysis. So that might be helpful. And then I can see here that it also gives you like the area of the polygon that you used. So that might be helpful for some people. In the analysis toolbox, there are some other sorts of tools that you can use to summarize your data. So you can go through all of these If you hover over them, it'll give you a little bit of a brief description. And then when you click on it, there's this little eye information icon that will take you to a page that has a lot more information on that tool. So if you have a kind of analysis that you are thinking that you want to do, but you're not sure if the tool exists, I would encourage everyone to sort of just look through the toolbox and see what's available here. So that's summarizing your data with statistics. The next sort of analysis and tool I want to talk about are overlays. So when you have multiple layers on your map, you can easily see that there are multiple layers and multiple data sets, but sometimes you want to just choose subsets of the different data sets depending on the locations of other data sets and things like that. So overlays are useful for when you have two data sets and you want to just have a subsection of your data set. So there are different kinds of overlays. The first one is erase. So you can see in this, this diagram here, this is the input data set, and then this is another area. So that can be like a protected area or a polygon that you draw or something like that. And it'll do basically that. It'll erase everything in your input that overlays with that data set. So here's the output. An example that might be useful here is if you want to look at microplastics in an area, and you know that some areas in your study area have protected areas and some don't, you can do an erase to see the areas where there are a lot of microplastics that aren't already in protected areas, and just output just those areas to sort of make a case for where you want a protected area to exist. The next sort of overlay is a union. So this just joins the two features together. It's useful if you're just merging two different kinds of data sets together that are from different data sources. So if you find microplastics from one source, and then there's another data set of microplastics from another source, you can do a union just to join the two features into one feature of microplastics in general. And the last overlay that I'll talk about is an intersect. So this will only output what is common to both features. So this is sort of the opposite of what an erase would do. So, for example, if you wanted to do sort of the opposite analysis with the microplastics and the protected areas, what you can do is you can do an intersect of areas that have microplastics that were collected there with a protected area and see which protected areas are still having microplastics in their collection sites. So those are the different overlays that will be useful for you. I'll go back to ArcGIS just to show you an example of that. overlay. So I found a data set on mangrove locations around the world, and I'll be using that in my example. So all of the little green areas are where my mangroves exist. And then again, I have my marine and coastal protected areas in these polygons. So what I want to do is I want to do an erase to see which areas of mangroves are not protected, but I can make a case for the protection of those areas. So I just have this whole area here in my study area. If I go to Mangrove Watch, which is the layer, I'll go to analysis again. In my toolbox, all of the overlays will probably be in manage data. You can see there's extract data, there's overlay layers here, merge layers. So I'm going to go to overlay layers because I have a little bit more flexibility on what I can do rather than merge or extract data. And again, if you want to see like the difference between all of these different tools, you can hover over them or click on them and look at the information button. So I'm going to go to overlay layers. My input features are the features that I want sort of cut out, which are the mangroves. So my input features are the mangroves. The overlay features, which I'm using to cut out, are the marine protected areas. My overlay type is I will be doing an erase so that I am just left with the areas of mangroves that are not yet in protected areas. Again, we'll have an output name. If you have a general idea of your area, there is another way besides sort of filtering a polygon and using that, or sort of drawing your own polygon, and that's in the environment settings. So right now, nothing is filtered. This is the whole global data set. It takes a little bit to load because it's this whole data set. I promise there are more mangrove areas around here, and you can sort of see them around here. So you can see this is all a global data set. And then if I go to estimate credits, because it's for this whole data set, if I estimate the number of credits, you'll see that it takes up 602 credits. So again, if you're trying to do a sort of global analysis, you can talk to us, but we would really encourage everyone to do a more local analysis for your projects. So this is for the whole data set, but if I go to environment settings, I can change the processing extent. So the processing extent is the area where the analysis is going to take place. Right now, the default is the full extent, but there are all of these different options that you can choose. So if you have coordinates of sort of a rectangle that you want. So you have like the coordinate of the top left and then the top right and the bottom right and the bottom left. You can add those coordinates yourself. You can also, again, use the extent from a specific layer. So if your layer is filtered, you can just do the extent of that filtered layer. And or you can just do the display extent. So the display extent is only what is shown on your screen right now. So I know that there is an area here where the protected area sort of cuts out in the middle of it, and I want to just showcase this little area. So I want my processing extent to just be here. So I'll zoom in, and then I know that the analysis will only take place in this area. If I estimate the credits again, you'll see that this only takes up 7 credits. So again, don't forget to estimate the number of credits that your analysis will use. And then I'll run this, but I already did that. Okay, maybe, oh yeah, it's in a different color now. Let's just change this color so that everyone can see that a little bit better. And then no. So now you can see the output that I have are just the mangroves that are not in protected areas. So that's this area here, and then this area here, and this area here. And you can, in your projects, if you do something similar to this, you can sort of make a case for these areas becoming protected areas as a solution. So those are overlays. I know that those were 2 new tools and analysis types. Does anyone have any questions so far? I think we can do like around 5 minutes of questions. Yes, Shion?
So this is not really a question related to what we just went through, but I was a bit busy yesterday, so I wasn't able to fill out the form for office hours. So
Okay,
can I fill it out now and will it be counted or?
yeah, sure.
Okay, so it's tomorrow.
Probably we'll send out the invite at the end of the day. So if you can do it within the next couple hours, that would be great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
no problem. Sarah?
Hello, I would just like to ask if every single tool that there is requires credits, or if there are a couple of tools that don't require any, and if we could like have a list of the ones that don't use any credits and the ones that require some.
Sure, yeah, I think most of the analysis tools do. I think the one that I will show next might not. We'll see when I do the demo. I forgot. But yeah, I can definitely send out a list of the credits.
All right, thank you.
Veronica?
Is there a way we can like see how many credits we have? Cause like I know like we need to like do the math, but also if like something happens and we miscalculate, is there like a way to check that?
Yeah, it should be in your profile somewhere. So I'm still screen sharing, right? Okay, so it might be in, if you go to my profile from the top right, Or the thing is that it's different for my account because it's the sort of administration account. So let me see where you'll find your specific information. I don't think you have the organization tab, but if you do, that's probably where it will be, but it should be somewhere in your profile. Mihal?
If we were to get data sets from the internet, how can we put it inside our story map?
Yeah, that will be the next sort of demo that I'll do. And I don't remember which session it was, either week 2. I think it might have been week 2 where I showed how to add a table that has coordinates into the GIS, so you can look at that recording session too. Ale?
Okay, so my question actually wasn't really related to this, but I have a question about how can we download data sets from SDGs today, because I really can't do this.
Sure, yeah. At the end, I'll go through how to all the different resources and how to use them.
Oh, okay, so because last time Miss Miriam explained it, but I tried to do the same thing, but I couldn't actually do it. So I thought maybe you can help. Thank you.
Sure. Do you remember which data set it was?
Yeah, it was about water scarcity in Morocco.
Okay. Let me just write that down. And I just need to plug in my laptop. Okay. Okay, so the next sort of demo that I'll do will probably be very helpful, hopefully. There is an analysis slash tool, I'm not sure what you would really call it, called a join. So if you have 2 data sets and you want to combine them together, you can do a join. But the most important thing is that they share one column of data. So for example, if you have a data table of countries and the different sort of plastic pollution rates in them, if you want to join that to another table, you have to make sure that there's at least one column that also has the country names in them. So as you can see here, it's useful for if you can only find data tables and not any GIS data. So if you can only find like tables, like I said, of countries and different sort of values of microplastics or plastic pollution or whatever thing that you're trying to map, you can join that table to country boundaries so that you can put it on a map. And this is an example. So here I have this CSV of different countries, different years, and the mismanaged plastic waste to ocean per capita per year. So this shows how much plastic waste each person in that country basically contributes to the oceans. And I'll have a link to the data sets that I use so that you all can sort of take a look and use them too. But as you can see, there's no like coordinates, there's no latitude or longitude, it's just the country names. If you have like a specific country that you're working with, maybe you'll have city names, or you'll have sort of state or province names. whatever the administrative like level 1 data is, and you can use that too. For here, I just have country names. So what I'll do is I have to add this as a table first. And similar to how we turned that table of coordinates into a point layer, I'll go to new item for my content page. I'll go down to feature layer. I'm going to define my own layer. And then this is if you want to create a blank template. So you can do this and specify the name and type, click on next, and then you sort of have like a blank layer that you can put data into. But I just want to add my table. So I'll just drag and drop that into here. And then there are these two options. So add it as a hosted feature layer table or add it just as a CSV. Similar to the microplastics data set, we want to create a hosted feature layer from here. So I'll click on next. Again, just like the microplastics data set, I have all of the columns and I just want to make sure that all of the names are correct and the data types are correct. I'll click on next. And it'll ask for the location settings. So this doesn't have coordinates, and ArcGIS is sort of smart and it knows that. So the default option is none, which says this contains no location and will be added as a table. If there are coordinates in your data set, you can use the latitude and longitude. If you also have like different addresses, you can use that as well. But again, it'll consume credits and then it'll tell you how many credits it will probably consume, and then you can decide whether to use that or not. But from here, I'm just going to add it as a table. And I'll save that. And I'll add it to a map. So it joins. I don't know if you hear the construction happening outside. Okay, so the first thing that I'll do is I'll add, with that, I'll just add the table that I just put into my content. Oh, and if it's not a GIS layer, it won't be under layers. You will have to go into the tables tab and add that table. So I'm going to add that table. Plastic pollution. And then from here, again, you can sort of open the data table itself and just to make sure that all the data that you want is in there. So as you can see, there's no information besides the base map that's here from this table because it's just a table of data. So I am going to add a layer. Browse layers. From the Living Atlas, I know that there is a GIS layer of country boundaries. So I'm going to look up countries. And the one that I want to choose is world countries generalized. So I'll add that as my GIS layer. And when I add it, you can see that now there is GIS data. However, the country boundaries, if you click on any of them, you can see that they don't have much information, and the table that I added is still separate. So I know that this data set has country name and it has this two-digit ISO country code. I'm going to go into my data table and see which what is similar. So it looks like I just have country names. I do have ISO codes, but for each country, it'll specify what it is. In the country boundaries that I have, it's just the 2-digit, but in the data table that I have, it's just the 3-digit. So we can't join the tables based on that. We have to join it based on the country names. So if I go to analysis, I go into my tools. I think it's in summarize data. So join features is here. I'll click on that because I want to join the country boundaries to the data table. The target layer is what will be sort of retaining the information. And that will be the country boundaries because I want to keep the country boundaries, but I want to add the data of the plastic pollution to those country boundaries. So my target layer is the countries, and then my join layer that I'm joining information from is the plastic pollution table. So there are different settings. This uses an attribute relationship, which means that there is a specific column in each of the data sets that I can join. So in the target field, it's called country name, and then in the join field, it's called entity. So target field comes from the target layer, which is the country boundaries, and then the join field comes from the join table, which is the data table. There are different sort of join operations that you can do. I'm going to do join one to many because I know that there are multiple years in my data table. So although there's only one boundary for each country might have multiple data points. So you can sort of specify the join type again. Inner join means that it will match only what is common to the both of them. So for example, if there's a country that doesn't have information in that data table, it won't be outputted. But if you do a left join, it'll return all of them. So I'm just going to do an inner join because I don't really need the countries that don't have data in my data set. Plastic join, I'll just use that as my output name. And then this, so it does take up credits, but you can see that joining tables really doesn't take up that many credits. this whole operation will only take up 0.416. So getting data tables and joining them might be a good option for your projects. One thing that you can do is, if you are pretty well versed in sort of Excel and CSV calculations and operations, you can do your calculations within Excel and then add your results as a table and then join it to the country boundaries. So that might be a good option for some of you. So I'm going to run this. Again, I can see the status of it. It's running. And then when it's done, you'll notice that instead of being in the tables tab, it'll be in the layers tab because it has GIS information and it has the country boundaries. So let's change this. This is from the cartography lesson, and I'll do it pretty quickly. So I just want to symbolize this data set based on the amount of plastic waste per person. So I'm using that column. And then I want to change the color based on that information. Best for dark backgrounds. Maybe I'll do something like this. And then again, you can see sort of the maximum in your data set and the minimum. I know that my maximum value is 3.2. So I can just increase the maximum of the color ramp to 3. And then you can see in here all of the countries that are bright yellow sort of have the most plastic waste to ocean ratio in that country. And then again, you can go through and do some filtering, or you can change the pop-ups in here. If it has multiple years, it should output multiple although I don't think it did here. Let me just take a look at this table very quick. Okay, well, it looks like this data set is only for the year 2019, but if you had multiple years, it should output sort of multiple polygons per country. But again, I'd encourage everyone to sort of just like filter your data set in your data tables beforehand, or filter it in your in the map viewer in ArcGIS. So I know that was a lot of information. We'll do questions for a few minutes, and then we can also talk about projects for the last sort of 10 to 15 minutes. Gianna?
So I have my data set that I made with Google Sheets because I copied it off of a like graph. So now I'm trying to get it into GIS, but it won't work. And when I go to like the data for the map, it shows that there's no data there. So I was a little confused on what information I need in the spreadsheet that's not there, or what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, so does your spreadsheet have what's the location information? Is it coordinates or is it like country names?
I have latitude and longitude, so coordinates.
Okay. And are you just downloading the Google Sheets as a like CSV or Excel sheet and then adding that to ArcGIS?
So I did it that way, and then I also tried doing it like where it says upload. I did Google Drive, so I tried multiple different ways, but none of them were working.
Okay. Do you remember what the error message was, or?
There wasn't really an error message. It was just when I did it, and there was nothing on the map that actually worked. And then when I go to data, there's no data there.
Okay, so let me share my screen quickly. When you added the table, so I know this one has latitude and longitude. You were going through like each of these steps, like add this as a hosted feature layer next, and then these are all of the fields next. Did you get to this sort of page where it says location settings, latitude and longitude?
Yeah.
And then were your fields showing up that needed to be there?
Let me try it again and see what comes up.
Okay, because what maybe happened is like the default column that they thought were the latitude and longitude weren't right. So you might have to just like change them manually. So here it thinks it's like the Y and the X columns, but I just want to do latitude and longitude.
Yeah, it was default to latitude and longitude.
Okay, and then when you clicked next, it was like nothing was showing up.
When I hit next, it went to the next page where it says like just finalizing it.
Yeah.
And then when I hit save and go to like view the map, and then I hit data, nothing's there, and the map like didn't change at all.
Okay. Why don't you send the why don't you send me like the link to the layer that it created and then maybe a link to the spreadsheet that you're using? Are you able to come to the office hour session tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, we can do a deeper dive into the issue then.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Sarah?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask this because I saw this in the chat, but I was also kind of curious. Will there be any other office hours except this one that we're going to have tomorrow?
Yeah, we should have a couple more sessions at the end, in a couple weeks, at the end of August, I think. We'll look through the schedule, but if it seems like we need to do like an extra one, then we can do another Thursday session.
All right, thank you.
Shreyan?
So I started my project like I'm very like only probably like one or two paragraphs done and like one of those slideshows. And I'm having a bit of a struggle with adding the data set. I'm not able to understand it when I'm watching the video or like the recording, the classes recording. I'm still not getting like how to like use the like add the data set and customize it to how you want it to and all that. So can I like go through that with you tomorrow during the office hour sessions?
Yeah,
Okay. Thanks.
yeah, no problem. Arnav and Charvi?
Hi. So I know this might be like an into depth question, so it's okay if you like give me like a really brief answer.
problem.
But
Yeah.
is there like a specific way to create an ArcGIS account, or since this is like part of a class, or do we like freely create our own account? Because I'm really confused on how to create an account and I haven't started my project yet because of that. So
Yeah.
like how do we create an account?
Yeah, I think that Crow should be able to help you with that, but I can send Crow a list of people if you want to add that to the office hours form, I can just send Crow a list of people who still need accounts, and then we can work it out from there.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Are there any other questions? Does anyone want to talk about their project and maybe if they thought of any ideas during the session of the different tools and sort of analyses that you can do in GIS for your project? Shreyan?
So if you remember during the start of the course, I asked you a question where how do you get the 3D globe on the map slideshow? So I never figured it out in the slideshow, but then I ended up creating a map tour later on,
Mhm.
and just like to explore, and I had the 3D 2D option.
Mhm.
So I created this, like I told before, that I'm focusing on the microplastic pollution in the water bodies inside India.
Mhm.
Not the oceans, inside India, the water bodies, the lakes and rivers.
Mhm.
So then I was able to create a map to the 3D one, so it zoomed a lot in and out.
Yeah.
And it went to these different lakes, and I put like a few hundred words each on each
Uh-huh.
lake and river to
Uh-huh.
explain like how it's polluted, how it used to be, now what it's like.
Cool. That sounds great. And I think a couple other people were wondering how to make the 3D maps, and so that was one of the questions we were gonna address during office hours tomorrow. So stay tuned. Ale?
It is not really a question, but I'm really struggling within the data set. I couldn't actually download it. So can you please help me figuring out how can I download it?
Yeah. Where are you getting your data set from? Is it like from a website that has a download link?
It is from SDGs Today.
Okay. Yeah, so I can go through that now. Okay. This was the water scarcity data set.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it SUD6?
Yes.
Did it come from this data set, the Global Land Data Assimilation System?
I don't really know because last time I asked and Miss Miriam helped me get the link, so I actually just got the link and I got the data set. So when I tried to download it, as she said, I couldn't. I don't really know where did she got it from. I just have the data sets complete.
Was it from the SUDs Today website, or did she just send you a link?
She just sent a link on the chat and I just got it.
Oh, okay, okay. So, will you share the link with me? Sorry, I haven't been keeping up with the chat as I am doing my demos, but if you send the link maybe in the office hours form, then we can, sorry, I'm just scrolling through all of the chats.
Oh, actually, it wasn't today. It was the last session.
Okay. Why don't you send the link in the office hours form, and then if you're
Yeah,
able to
yeah.
come tomorrow, then come. Otherwise, the session will be recorded, so we can answer your question there
Yeah,
again.
I think that's good. I will be attending tomorrow and I will just send the link. Thank you.
Great. Nihal?
My teammate and I, we found a map of all the ships that travel in the world, and we want to
Mhm.
integrate it into our story map, and it has no table, and we can't copy it or download it as a HTML file. So how do we print our story map?
You're trying to add the ship data to your story map. Was that
Yeah. Yes.
is there like a download button? Were you able to download the data
Was
at
no
all?
download button. It only shows a view of all the ships that are traveling and the map where it goes.
Yeah. I think we sort of run into this problem too, where the data is on a map, but the data provider doesn't give access to it. Why don't you also share a link in the office hours forum? I think you might have to just find another data set. You can also, if you want to make sure that you can download the data, every data provider should have something called like terms of use, or like disclaimers or something like that. So you can look through the documentation and see, like how to actually get the data. They might have like an API on a separate sheet, on a separate website or something like that. So just looking through the data provider website and seeing the different download options. If it is sort of like a private data set, you won't be able to use it, but I'm sure we and some of your peers can also help look for another data set that would be similar to that.
If there are no copyright violations, can we take a screen recording of the map and put it into our story map?
Sure, yeah, you can take a screen recording. You can take a screenshot, add it as an image, or you can add it as a video. You just won't be able to like change anything about the map or do any analysis or anything like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm. And to that point, some data providers do have maps that are interactive. And so if it's a data set that you can't download, but it's on a map and you can do sort of analysis tools, they'll probably be similar to what tools are available in ArcGIS. So if that's an option and you can't download the data, you can just use their own map viewer and sort of do the analysis and like write down your results and things like that from there. I don't think that'll happen too often, but in case that's something you come across, that might be an option. Ale?
Oh no, I just forgot my hand raised.
Oh, no problem. Nihal?
Is there also any way for teammates to work together on the same project?
Yeah. I think the annoying thing about ArcGIS is that you can't really do sort of like what you can do in Google Drive, where you can collaborate on like the same document at the same time or anything like that. Although I think they might have changed some of those settings. So I would just say to make sure that your story map is shared to the organization. So changing the sharing settings in the item detail page or in your content page on ArcGIS. And then you can share the link and then work on the story map separately.
Thank you.
Prisha asked, will our account get credited to 100 credits sometime today? I think the process might take a little while, but you'll have the project feedback and the credits by the end of the week. We're just a little bit behind, but we should have everything done by the end of the week. Does anyone else want to talk about their project and maybe some ideas that they had during the session? Zarella?
Yeah, for my project, I wasn't super focused on microplastics, but I was gonna focus on like acid rain because that was a big issue in my community that's kind of been solved. And then maybe focus on another issue that hasn't really been solved, like salting, or maybe focusing on microplastics. And because where I live is a state park, I was thinking some of those like parts, I forget what it was called, but where you like overlay or where you cut out a certain part data sets, that might be useful because like the area I'm in probably already has some like set boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah, and if you go into your like some states and some cities have their own GIS databases. So if your state or city is really good about keeping GIS data, you might be able to just find like boundaries like that sort of easily. So that's another perk of sort of like choosing one local area. And if the area that you want doesn't have GIS data, but there's another area, like feel free to change your project around based on the kind of data that you are that's available to you. Before we end, I just wanted to go through a couple of other resources that might be helpful for everyone as they're trying to decide what kind of analysis to use in their projects. So I'll share my screen again. That was our discussion question. And then for resources, there are a few different ways to find other tutorials for different kinds of analysis and things like that. This is one that I've already shared in the past, but I will share it with everyone again. On SDGs Today, under trainings, there are all of these different learn lessons per SDG. And then there are also a lot of different links to different sort of learning resources for SDGs and GIS. So for example, if I go to SDG 14, Life Below Water, and I'll add this link in the chat to, oh, that's the one. Here's the SDGs Today education page. If I go to SDG 14, Life Below Water, you can see all of these different sort of videos and articles and story maps. If you want a refresher, you can look at the What is GIS video. There's a lot of like introductory videos and articles in every SDG. But if you go down, there are a couple of more specific tutorials to that specific SDG. So for example, predict coral bleaching events. You just want to make sure that you can use ArcGIS Online in these, and I'll show you how to sort of filter all of these tutorials out for that. But some of these videos and articles might be useful for you. Esri on ArcGIS Online also has this tutorial gallery. So this link will already filter out ArcGIS Online for you. But these are all the different tutorials that's available for you. So for example, Some people were trying to create 3D apps and maps. You can sort of like search for 3D and then those will pop up. But there are also like different analysis tutorials that you can use. So for example, map and analyze the urban island effect, use map analysis tools to develop parks equitably. You can sort of go through and see what is a similar enough analysis in these tutorials that might be helpful for your project, and then go through the tutorial and use that for your projects. So I think that is it for today. I know it was a lot of information, so we'll send out the recording and I'll see you at office hours tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anala. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.